All right. Thanks for attending Worldwide Stock Car Chat. Number 55 is this or 54? I forget. I don't care. I'm your host, Greg Gell. We are trying a new night so we can get some Aussies and whomever from down under to join us. And it looks like Gary, aka Gaza, has joined us at least for a short amount of time. So, Gary, you're going to be able to hang around for a long time, or do you want to?
Oh, it's only 9 o'clock in the morning, mate, so I've got all day.
I mean, people were posting that they've got weddings and birthdays and grass to mow or whatever excuses.
No, it's been raining solid for a week, so you can't mow the lawn, so it's fine, not a problem.
Perfect. We've got you for the whole 2 hours.
And it's too early to start drinking, so it's
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But we do have some other new faces, and so we will do what we used to do quite a bit and have a little slot history of our new faces. Neil, you were our first new face before the recording started. Do you want to give us your slot history?
I'll give you a short. Can you hear me okay?
You're coming in fine, and give us short, long, whatever you want.
All right, I'll give you a short one. Just like I've been watching your chats. I actually saw the last two, and then I just started from the beginning, and I'm up to number 6.
Okay.
It's a little daunting, 2 hours at a clip, but it's very interesting.
Turn the speed up. If you're watching it on YouTube, I use a shift and then the side arrows to speed up and slow down. And at 2, it takes some getting used to, but at two times speed, you can understand most people.
Yeah.
About half as long.
It's okay. I don't want to miss anything because like some of your chats, it's very difficult to get good information. So anyway, I started like most of you with an HO set when I was young, and then I got away from that, obviously, like everybody else, and life takes over. I'm on my 3rd marriage, my best marriage, and I've been married 20 years now.
3rd time's a charm.
3rd time is a charm. And so I spent 30 years in the cable industry, and I managed 3 departments, and they outsourced all 3 departments. So now I'm retired, and I'm 62. And I've always, when I was younger, my cousin, I guess back in the late 60s, early 70s, slot car commercial tracks were huge. And my one older cousin was into it, but I was really small. So, but I was always intrigued. And when I got old enough, they all disappeared, at least in my area. I live in Jersey. And, but I always wanted to try, to try it. So anyway, now that I'm retired, the last 5 years, I built my own, well, first I set up an HO track. That's when I started. Then I tore that down and I routed my own HO track. Then I tore that down and I bought a Carrera track. And now I'm Carrera Digital. And on my, I want to say my 5th or 6th iteration of the track. For whatever reason, had to move it, change it. This last time I'm putting in a whole house generator, and I needed partial of the wall in the basement. So I had to lose 3 feet of my track. So now I have, my track is only, the table is only like 3 feet wide, but it goes in all over the basement. So this way I'm into the landscaping part also. So I'm in the middle of doing that now that I have the track set up. but this way I can reach things from both sides. So it makes it a little bit easier, especially when you get older. Who wants to climb on an 8-foot long, wide table? So that's where I'm at right now. Things are a mess. I won't show you. Maybe in the future, I'll give you a pan of my racetrack. Right now, it's a little crazy because I'm doing all of the landscaping and stuff. But here's the thing: there's no clubs. I've never raced. I never had a race. I've only done this by myself. So I don't have all my friends. They could care less about slot cars. They're into other things, which is fine. But there's no clubs in my area, and I haven't been able to hook up with anybody around here. So it makes it a little difficult to, bounce things off each other and learn new things, what's going on. It's very difficult. And I think I was on chat 6 and you guys were talking about this information. You had books that you were showing, but that information is quite, mostly analog. It's not up to date. But I do enjoy the sport. I mean the hobby. I was never into trains, but like I said, I like to do the landscaping part. And my goal is to build my own slot cars. I think a lot of you are into the racing part and the the cars that actually do race. I just like cool cars, and a lot of the manufacturers don't do a lot of American cars. So I figured I would just build my own. So that's my ultimate goal, and that's my story.
Awesome. I mean, very similar, like you said, very similar to lots of us. I mean, plenty of us are not necessarily into the race, the speed craze morons as they used to call them, racing. They're into the scale racing, hard body cars that look like real cars and all that.
Right.
Some of them do. Some people do landscaping. Some more than others, and some less than others, and some not at all.
Which is okay too.
That's what's so great about the hobby, is that there's so many facets to enjoy.
And that's true, because I see a lot of these YouTube videos where people have, it's strictly, there's no landscaping, and they're just beautiful tracks, and that's cool too.
And there's plenty of very nicely landscaped tracks out there as well. Especially,
I hope mine will be.
Since you're into landscaping, have you been on various forums and seen some of the really nice landscape tracks?
But most of my landscaping ideas and stuff come from trains.
Yeah, that's where they mostly come from.
They do most of the videos on how to. There's not a lot of slot car people doing it, like you said.
Sure. Well, there's one guy who's becoming very prolific with his slot car scenery videos. Boone's Slot Car Garage.
Oh yes, I have seen Boone's. I actually subscribe to his channel. Yes.
Good. Yeah. So he does a lot of great stuff. But I'm thinking along the lines of some of the really impressive modeled slot car tracks. If you go to Slot Forum, there's a track by a member named Brad Carando, his thread on Slot Forum in the tracks and scenery section was called Slowly But Surely. And that's because he worked on it slowly but surely. And it's actually it's a relatively small layout, happens to be Carrera Digital. And I'm
going to take notes.
Yeah, by all means. I'll see if I can find the link, or if somebody wants to search around for the link and stick it in the chat.
Or watch the video later.
Or watch the video later. Yeah, exactly. And the sad part, people who were around when he was posting it fresh remember it, because it was just mind-blowing. It just absolutely was the most astonishing landscape slot car track anybody's ever seen. It blew slot car mods, or whatever those overpriced things that Jay Leno buys
Oh, yeah,
out
that's
of the water.
crazy. Yeah.
I mean, and those are decent tracks, but his modeling just blew that stuff away. And the sad part was that because a lot of the photos were being stored, I think they were being stored on PhotoBucket, and then PhotoBucket did their thing where they didn't want any sites to have access to pictures on PhotoBucket. They all disappeared.
Wow.
And completely disappeared. But fortunately, some of the guys who were around at that time knew how special they were and saved the pictures to their hard drive. And one of the guys, David, has been uploading all of his pictures. So if you go to that thread now, it's actually fairly recently updated and is just hundreds of pictures and with no description, but most of them are fairly self-explanatory about what you're looking at. You're looking at the before, during, and after of various stages of his landscaping. And that's just one example. I mean, there are some, of course, his name escapes me now, but there was a guy down in California who loved doing landscape layouts so much that he would basically do one and just do the spectacular, huge rock faces and buildings and bridges and water and all that stuff. And then he'd be like, okay, well, this one's done. Who wants it? And then he would sell it for a few $100 to some guy that would haul it off in his truck. And then he would start another one.
Just turn my video off while I'm eating. See?
All right, no problem. and so yeah, there's a lot of really great examples of really, really nice landscape spot car tracks.
These are the participants in the Zoom meeting. A lot of them are quite well known.
You still hear you,
Around
Mark?
the world, there's some of the top guys in different fields. But there's a second
Neil,
page
I
of
was going to ask you if you have a theme for your layout.
Do I have a scene?
Yeah, theme.
Oh, a theme? No. The theme is here. It's whatever I want to build, I build.
Yeah.
Like I wanted a bridge. So I built a bridge. It's 4 feet long. Trying to do it close to scale for 1/32. So it's 4 feet long, and it was all done from scratch. Every piece of wood, tiny piece of wood, was cut and glued, and so I did that. I'm in the middle of trying to build out of my head, like a kind of like a castle kind of theme, like a Harry Potter kind of thing, and so I'm doing that. I don't know, just I find something that I really like, and I want to see if I can actually build it or create it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at. So I don't really go by pictures, which I should. So when I eventually show you guys, this is just all out of my head.
I mean, if it's something that you want to model, then you'll probably do a better job of it than something that you're like feeling obligated to model. It's like, okay, well, I guess I need a pit building, so I'll do this one. But then if you think of some really cool pit building that you're like, oh, that would be so cool, then you'll enjoy it and you'll do a better job.
And let me tell you, it changes all the time, because if you don't like something, I tear it down and I start over. And it drives my wife crazy, because she was like, how many times are you going to tear this thing apart and put it back together? And well, as many times as I have to, that's all.
That's the part I enjoy.
Yeah. Change is good.
Well, I'm glad that you're here, and I look forward to seeing your.
I'm glad. I'm amazed at everybody here. I've been listening to you. You guys are so knowledgeable, and I hope I could just grasp maybe a fifth of what goes on in your heads.
And that's why
I missed it. Neil, where are you at?
I'm in New Jersey.
Ah, okay.
Joyzy. What city, if you would be so?
Bridgewater.
Bridgewater. So anybody out there in Bridgewater, or wants to drive to Bridgewater, or take the whatever.
Hey, I'll drive anywhere too.
Or if you got a track, he'll race with you, or you can race with him. Just
I've never done it. I don't know what that experience is like, racing.
Well, you said you watched the video. We were talking about that same problem, Did you hear my Greg's rules for starting a club?
No, I didn't get that far.
Well, it's pretty easy. Give it a name,
Yeah.
pick a date and time, tell as many people as possible.
There you go.
Repeat steps 2 and 3 as necessary. So you already have a club, you just don't know it yet. Now you just need to invite people to it. And
Yeah,
that's-
it would be nice, you know, to learn that aspect of it, and like I said, just be able to pick each other's brains, because
and when you're trying to decide what to do, like let's say you get, you know, a neighbor or somebody down the road that you kind of know, and he's like, oh, that sounds like fun, and he brings a friend or whatever, and maybe somebody from work or whatever. You get a few guys down there, and you're all just kind of driving your cars around.
right.
Then you just say, well, hey, you know, you guys want to like start a competition of some kind? You guys want to get your own cars? What kind of
Yeah.
cars do we get? And then you just talk about it. And next thing you know, you guys are running a race series. Somebody's going to be so stoked about it, they end up buying.
I hope that happens.
Oh, it's just a matter of perseverance and time.
I'm set up for it. I
Yeah.
mean, I can do all the race apps, and you know, I can do all that.
We've got guys in the group here that have done exactly what Greg's advocating. Mike is with us
Yeah.
today, and he's done very much the same thing, and in recent times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look hard
I
enough,
s-
you could probably find a commercial place not too far. I think there's still going to be a few somewhere. I mean, it's a dense enough metro region, just the whole East Coast, for crying out loud. It's dense
You-
enough. There's probably a commercial raceway out there somewhere. You just got to find it.
You would think there would be, but I have tried.
A friend of mine, one of the guys who was on our forum, he moved up the coast and there was nobody around there, and he had to travel about two hours or so up the road to go to some other place to another home track. Anyway, he was had the garage door open. He was just playing, just had it set up there, working on his real car, and the track was down. And one of his neighbours walked past and said, "Oh God, I used to play with that sort of stuff years ago." He said, "Oh yeah, we still do this." Next minute, he's in there. They've got the throttles out. They're racing around and all that. A couple of weeks later, this guy's found out where he ordered his track from. It was all in compact and everything else, and he ended up buying another track. So he's got another track in the street as well, this guy there, and found two other people in the next street doing the same thing.
Yep.
Now that he's got more people that he can race with, and he can poke a stick at.
Ah,
Exactly. So it's just
So it's out there. It's sort of, yeah,
Cross your
exactly,
fingers.
yeah.
exactly. They're out there because, you know,
If not off a beer.
I've
But
tried to get some
that's
of
not a
the
problem.
offering a beer. Yeah, beer and pizza. Come race with me.
Yeah,
Pizza
yeah.
and beer.
If you have a nice layout, which it sounds like you probably have, there are too many grown men who would come down there and see that instantly turn into a 12-year-old kid, and probably a few weeks later go out and buy their own track and follow suit. So I think that's one of the best ways to get people in the hobby, because they got the disposable income to buy cars and really get involved to it. And that's a great route to go.
But there was another guy, same sort of thing. He could hear this high-pitched squealing noise going on all the time when he's walking around the street, and he wondered what the hell it was. Blokes across the road had their own track set up, and they were running like 40,000 RPM motors with 8 or 9 magnets in it. And these things were screaming around this track, and he could hear it from across the road. And the same thing set up, and he tried to get them to sort of go across to the easy side and sort of, well, you know, these are sort of like box stock. We set it up and race. And they sort of worked for a while, but no, they had can you get anything bigger than a 40,000 RPM motor? You know, what about this? And, so, yeah, and they were just destroying cars. Cars were just melting and all that. So you can go from one extreme to the other sort of thing. So, yeah, they're out there.
How far are you, Neil, from Mount Holly?
Well, Mount Holly would be probably an hour.
Okay. There's a commercial track there called the Speed Zone.
Yes, I've heard of it. I haven't been there yet.
Okay.
Speed Zone, yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
if they're few and far between, as it sounds, then there are probably guys who go to Speed Zone that do drive an hour or more to get there.
Yep.
Because that's what they like.
I think
Yeah.
there's one other one in the opposite direction that's about 45 minutes. Zeppelin, I think it's
Yeah, not as good.
no.
No. And I mean, regardless of whether you like what they're doing or not at the commercial track, they'll probably know of clubs and folks in the area. So it's not a bad resource to like who's doing what in your area.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I'm not into that. The commercial where it goes so fast you can't really even see your car.
Well, no, I get that, but they do
Yes.
sell lots of parts. They sell
Yes.
slot cars, and they'll know slot car guys. So I mean, you may be totally disinterested in what they are
I'm
doing.
I'm not disinterested. Yes, that would be a source because I guess what you're trying to say is I need to hook up somewhere with someone somehow.
Well, if you want to, like you don't.
Oh, I
have
do want to. Yes.
I
But
think
if you're looking for like individuals, there's a good chance that some of the commercial raceways will know of some of the guys that are interested in playing with slot cars.
Cool.
Yeah. So I mean, even if you go, let's say you go to one of those places and they're racing, whatever they race at that location, and you say, oh yeah, just came to check it out. I race Carrera Digital on my home track, and you just kind of wanted to come see what you guys are doing. One of the guys might say, oh yeah, I got Carrera Digital at home too, or they got something else, but they don't have anybody else to race with, so they go to that place just to race with other people. It's totally the whole networking 6 degrees of separation thing. Eventually you start connecting with other people. You post on a forum, you get on online Zoom chat and say, hey, I'm over here in New Jersey wanting to race with people. Next thing you know, you've got somebody who wants to come race with you.
Yeah, I was on Home Racing World.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Wise.
Yep.
And there is a place on his forum for slot car clubs. And when you scroll down to New Jersey, there's a big goose egg.
Well, put your information.
Be a first.
That's exactly what you would.
Exactly. I have to put mine in.
You put yours in. Neil's Racing Club, Neil's Career Digital Club, whatever you want to call it. And then people say, oh, hey, that's just around the corner. I'll go check out Career Digital at Neil's place.
Yep. I'm going to have to do that.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's get some more new faces. Mark, you've been on before. It's been a while, but Gaza is new, so we're going to make him give us a slot history of Gaza. Go ahead, Gaza.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, started off early, 30 odd years ago, more 40 years ago. Same thing, just household sort of thing, track at home, a few mates get together. Started doing a lot of rally stuff. A few years back, started doing proxy rallies. Old Slot Racers was involved in it at some stage. Leo as well. A few of the other guys had entries in there, racing around different tracks around the world and all that in proxy events. Just on the rally sort of stuff, that's the sort of scenery sort of stuff that you can do that's not really that involved, but it sort of adds to the track environment, makes it a bit more interesting. Yeah, it's basically these days the COVID sort of put a kibosh on a lot of stuff for a while, quieting things down, movement and everything else, but it's all starting to get back together again now, especially over here. Yeah, just basically playing. I've been playing with 3D stuff of late, just printing a few bits and pieces, finding stuff and stuff that I sort of enjoy, different cars, different models, and enlarging a lot of the ones that have been released that you can use.
Okay, why are you
So
doing
what's
that?
What's happened there? It's all gone. Oh, changing. Oh, am I still on?
No, let's Lestrandus's screen.
I don't know. It just went ballistic.
I'm gonna stop that.
Oh, there we go. Back again. I don't know what happened there.
But he started sharing his screen for some reason. I'm not sure why.
The mouse is over in the corner. I'm not touching it.
Not you. Somebody else entirely. This was entirely.
Oh, okay. All right.
Entirely Lestrandus's fault. Lara Tondus. I don't know. That's who was sharing their screen for some reason. Don't make me turn screen sharing off, people. I'll do it. Well, thank you for sharing your history.
Not
with
a problem. Not a
Gary.
problem. Yeah.
And thanks for joining us. Mark, you were waving your hand earlier. Did you want to circle back on something, or you're muted?
He just wanted to wave the finger. Was this
Yeah.
Mark?
Oh yeah, sorry, Gary. I forgot.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. Oh, wrong one. There you go. Oh, that's not the one. Okay.
Yeah, just for the Americans. This way, that way to you guys is peace or something, but for everybody else, it's up you.
This is pretty
Gary
much
and I have been
clever
giving
and
each other cheek for years. Now, I was just going to say in relation to Neil that to get the club I'm in going, I managed to get a article in a community newspaper in our small city about a guy wanting to set up a club. I barely knew there was any other brand than Scalextric in the world. I didn't know there was wood track racing other than the old commercial raceways, and there weren't any in my part of the country. So I invented a terminology, Europlastic, describing these crazy continentals, as I called them, who raced on Scalextric tracks with plastic-bodied cars like you'd buy on a home set. Just because of all the YouTube videos I'd seen from some of the big Spanish and Italian clubs, I got that article in the community newspaper, and we had about a dozen guys turned up to my house to watch on the theatre screen, on an invitation night, what they did in Europe, and that's how the club got going. But also, a lot of supermarkets in our country have a community notice board within the
Ours too, yes.
supermarket, where you can just pin up a little handbill advertising something. It's free. You can use that, and of course, you've got Facebook groups in some communities. We have about 8 in our small city of 60,000, and we have one just for our suburban area. So those are good places to throw out an idea. So that was all I wanted to add, apart from giving Gary the one finger wave.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah, those are great
Also-
suggestions. And
Also, Neil, if you've got, is there anything like, do you have any man sheds or anything like that sort of thing over there, where a lot of retirees all sort of get together, mostly males and all that, and they sort of do community work? They might make things out of timber, steel,
Yeah,
whatever it is, sort of just handyman sort of stuff. But if a lot of guys get together doing that sort of stuff, a lot of them have that sort of knowledge, basic knowledge of sort of things. So
are you, or
Yeah.
can't you join your local Eagles or veterans or any of those tend to be older white male clubs, because that's your demographic right there.
True, that is true. Yeah, I guess I'll have to try all of those.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. I used to do the post on the supermarket wall for various clubs and stuff, and if you most towns will have like a free newspaper or like coffee news or whatever, and a lot of times you can send them article suggestions or just send them information, and they'll put it in their newspaper or whatever rag it is for free. Maybe some local newspaper or even TV station would like to do a little slot cars still exist special interest stories, and this guy's doing it in his own garage. You end up getting a whole bunch of free press about.
you can also
that good
try your own.
thing. What was that?
Also try your local hobby shop as well, where you buy your stuff from.
Yeah.
And just get on good with the bloke who's selling the stuff and say, hey, there's a guy that comes in all the time, and he's actually got his own track and racing, and
Only
So-
problem with that is I do it all online.
Oh, well, I'll put it out there then. You never know where they come from. Just wear a
Exactly.
mask. Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
Yeah, lots of great suggestions. Anybody else got any good suggestions for Neil on where to talk about and try to get some new club members? Looks like we hit all the bases.
Yeah, we got to be patient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
patience is good, but perseverance.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all good information.
There was also that very good thread on Slot Forum, I think, and a couple of other forums recently. Somebody inquired about how to get a club up and running, or what makes a successful club. I did one bit of an epistle on it, and a couple of other guys, I think Alan did one, somebody else did one, but the common elements were it's about having fun. All the sheep stations
absolutely.
have already been won. we're only there to blag and brag.
Yeah, I'm not looking to change the world. I just want to have fun.
Yep.
I don't want to be serious.
Well,
I mean,
basically-
serious as far as I want to learn, but I just want to have fun doing it.
and that's pretty much where we're all at. So to try some of those ideas one at a time. You don't want to flood yourself. Not that that will ever happen, but just in case, try them one at a time. You know, maybe a different one each week or something like that until you get some traction. And then
I
it's all
will.
about word of mouth. You know.
I'll keep you up to date.
Awesome. Yeah, join us again. Let's see. Do we have any other new faces or names in the list? Mark, it's been a while. Have you had any interesting things happening in your slot history?
We're pretty much just carrying on as before. For those that don't know, I'm from New Zealand, and we went into a hard lockdown last March with COVID for 6 weeks, and we got it out of the community. So we pretty much live normal lives these days, apart from having border closures. So we've had our clubs running all through last year, which has made it easier. Our club's going really well. Some of you will know Munter, the guy that does a lot of resin work. He's one of our founder members with me. There's another guy that you might see starting to pop up on places like MVD Resins and on forums called Bingo, aka Paul Bing, who's doing 3D printing and now resin printing and now engineering stuff on his lathe. He's an engineer by trade at a pulp and paper mill or timber mill. And so he's building things like replacement split wheels for tire lathes. He's doing another kind of a wheel for those. He's doing a few other aluminium and steel engineered things. And a lot of he's doing Scalytrick guard repair posts and units and special items to create adjustable height rear axles on Scalytrick cars, things like that. A lot of clever stuff. So we're a very fortunate position, and as well we've got Munter who produces vac form stuff on demand, so we get lightweight interiors and glasses for a lot of models of car. Paul Bing's doing chassis, so it's nothing I'm doing, but we've got a couple of really clever guys in the club who are doing stuff that's going around the country and around the nations now. So it's a really good feeling to be part of that. We've got a really good bonhomie going in club. There are no posterior orifices in the club apart possibly from me. And we've got about 16 guys, and some tracks we rotate around several home tracks, but week by week we can't go to a couple of them because there's not enough space now when you've got 12, 15 guys turning up. Wow, what a terrible problem to have. So we don't do any advertising at the moment. We've got enough guys flowing in as contacts to keep us comfortably full. Yeah, that's about it. And hey, we've discovered Pioneer Legends. So a couple of guys bought some, or one or a couple, and so I bit the bullet and went off to Oliver and got a box of a dozen in from Professor Motor, which arrived on Tuesday, and we're all gone by the time we started club on Thursday night. So I just ordered a box of them from Pendle and another few and some other bits and pieces more from Professor Motor. So there's about another 20 Legends coming because most guys want at least a couple. They are the most fun I've had in a slot car for a long time.
Yeah, when I first saw those, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going to get some of those. But then when they came out, it's like, well, I'll wait until one of the clubs wants to race them. So waiting for that, and a blue and yellow livery. As soon as there's a blue and yellow one, obviously I'll buy that.
Yeah, we only got one other club in New Zealand races them at the moment. So officially the Pioneer distributor is a guy called Tony Cook, who doesn't have a website. He's the NSR and Thunderslot guy, but he only had 3 or 4 left, and a couple of them were dealer specials at, at 130 US each. So he said, look, Mark, I'm not going to bring any more, and you just go ahead and do what you like. We're such terrible competitors. We always discuss our planning for the year as to when we're going to have all our invitational race meets for the different cars and when the nationals are to be, and who's going to do what. We're terrible competitors. We only buy each other's product and resell it. That's kind of the going attitude.
Well, it's good that everything is hunky dory where you are. The club the analog club that I had been racing with has more or less been racing this whole time, regardless of what rules were happening. They wore their masks and everything, but I didn't go back until last Monday after my second vaccine had finished doing its job. And they're still being good wearing masks and stuff, but I will have to admit that as much as it bothered me that they were still doing that whole time, it was good to see them again. It was nice to get in the same room with the guys and pull the trigger on a car on a track with the guys and give them shit every time they came off. It was good. It was good. So I'll definitely be going back some more. But yeah, looking forward to racing some Pioneer Legends one of these days too.
And I'm feeling very envious of you guys at the moment because, you know, my home club, Nascotwood in Watford, we shut the doors last March, more than a year ago, and it hasn't opened again. And the prime reason it hasn't opened is the school expanded into that space so that they could socially distance separate the children. And they've started using it for different things. And if we go in there, then it has to be deep cleaned. We haven't seen the track for more than a year because it's all stacked up in a lockup at the back. Don't know what we're going to find when we eventually get back there, if we get back there. So that's it's not looking so great at the moment. And but London Scalectric Club down at Wood Green, during the UK went from total lockdown to a tiered system based on areas. And for a short while there, about 3 months, London was in tier 2, which meant that if we were creative, we called it an indoor sport. We said we're participating in indoor sports. It's a motorsport. So we did for 3 months, and then we got another national lockdown, and everything went to hell. So, you know, there's a chance that we might see some of these clubs start to open in maybe mid-June. We will see. But, you know, for you guys that have been racing through the pandemic, I am so envious, I tell you. And I've been reverting to things that I've never done before, like proxy racing, building cars for proxy racing, because there's nothing else to do here. There's nowhere else, no other way I can get any kind of kicks out of slot cars other than build them, strip them, test them, strip them, build them, and then send them off for a proxy, because nothing else to do.
Yeah, Alan, there'll be a box coming to you. It's got 25 cars on it that need tuning. Thank you.
The Pioneer Legend has got plenty of opportunity in its natural, as I understand it, for improvement.
I mean, I heard it drives like a Pioneer, so you know it runs out of the box, and then you can get more out of it with some more work in it, right?
Yeah. Wayne, have you been racing Pioneer somewhere or at home or?
No, I've just been watching Harry Wise.
Okay.
He's done a tear down on the car and put some advice out. So I've just you know, studied it via videos.
Yeah.
Someone needs to find their mute button.
I helped him.
Thank you. We had a clean-up night at our club tonight. It's the green shoots of reopening. Our government, because although I'm in the UK, I'm in a different country to Alan. I'm in Wales. We've got May the 17th as an opportunity to begin up to 15 adults in indoor gatherings, shall we say, from different households. So we can, from May the 17th, we can start Slot Car Club again. So I don't know what's in the planning. I didn't go to the clean-up meet. That was tonight. I would have been still there, perhaps. But yeah, we've got things on the horizon. And Alan, I understand we've got a race meeting we're likely to meet up at in July.
Rockingham.
That's what I'm targeting. Are you?
Well, I'm putting the word out to my teammates, you know, and one has said yes, he'll try and get the time off work, and the other one hasn't said anything yet. You know, I know that the places are filling up, but I don't really want to go and try and do a meeting like that with less than 3 of us and without a really good plan for what car we're going to run and how we're going to build it, test it. I think the major struggle we've had with racing, digital racing, whether it's long races or short endurance sort of 3-6 hour type things, is that we don't have access to a digital track. So we are building the cars blind pretty much. We're aware of how to tune for Ninko, but we're not aware of how to tune for digital Ninko, and not having access to a track is a bit of a limiting factor. Although one of the local clubs, Stanborough, I noticed about 6 months ago, they have retrofitted their 6-lane Ninko with some lane changes. So they're going to be supporting oxygen quite soon. I can't wait to see that happening. And then maybe we'll have the opportunity to do some car testing, which should improve performance, I think. So yes, Rockingham maybe, but that's dependent on my teammates.
And have you got a car in that category already built?
No. No, sure. No.
That's the twist, isn't it?
It's one of the things about a digital racing team. We can talk about the technology in the cars and tuning and all that kind of thing. The most important thing is to get the right teammates. That's absolutely the most important thing. You've got to be able to tolerate each other when things aren't working properly. And you've also got to kind of lean on your own best skills.
And what are you aiming for? Aiming for 3?
3, yeah.
No less than 3, but you could have been aiming for 5 or 6 or something like that, which I think would be a bit big.
No, 3's good. And 4's useful because then someone can take a break. I think if for the 24-hour type racing, 4 is a minimum. I'd probably even go for 5.
Yes, yeah, I think so too.
But for something like Rockingham, 3 would be fine. So, but unless we can get 3, I don't think it's. I've done Rockingham with 2 before, and we came up to Stafford to the Stoke Club and did a GT race there, and that was just Graham and myself. And that worked out quite well, but it would have been easier if there had been 3 of us.
You always need a marshal, don't you? And you've got no crewmate, no support, no mechanic, no one you can easily call on without removing the marshal. So
it's true.
Yeah. Anyway, we've taken over the chat. Let's have a look at another subject.
Well, and thanks for the segue, Wayne. I figured it might be fun to read the email that I got from Kyle Dally, the winner of the slot car from the last 2 episodes.
It wasn't me then?
No, sorry.
I came along tonight to collect my Ferrari.
Let me go ahead and read the message. I think you guys will find it at least a little bit amusing, if not heartwarming. So he sent me an email titled Zoom Chat Winner. He says, "Good afternoon, Greg. I'm still a little bit in shock here from watching the replay of Slot Car Chat while boiling the baby's bottles. I will give you a brief history to share with the guys next week if you're interested. I'm 32 and live in Ontario, Canada. My first slot car memories was an HO Lamborghini Countach 2-pack kit that my brother and I wore out pretty quickly. And then it wasn't until I was about 20 when my dad took me to his buddy's house, who ended up building a really nice 132nd layout. I remember we didn't get home until 5 a.m. the next morning from racing. The next day we went to the city and bought a Carrera Superbird and took it there that night and went at it again. After that, we started to collect rapidly. I started working on a 3-lane 58-foot routed track in Mom's basement. Unfortunately, I was only able to race my dad twice on it before he passed of cancer. Over the next few years, life turned crazy and had a family and got too busy to race. We usually tried to race on Christmas Day until this winter when a bunch of us that raced 10 years ago had nothing better to do because of the crazy COVID restrictions we have in this province. It has been about 1 to 2 months since I found this chat on YouTube. I've watched all the episodes since that point, but it usually takes me 3 to 4 days to watch it completely because of my schedule. I would like to join the Zoom chat at some point, but I have a feeling my wife won't like me talking about silly cars with other grown men. Also, regular how-to videos and stuff. So, yeah, I love everything about that. I love that he's watching the chats. He wishes he could participate but can't. He won the car. He's got that great, understandable, relatable history, and that bond with his dad and his friends and everything. I mean, you couldn't have written it better on purpose. So I'm super stoked that Kyle won that. I did talk to Electric Dreams, which he had placed an order for other cars. So I was trying to mix his winning car in with his other orders. But apparently I waited too long to do that. Anyways, his car is on the way to his location, and I'm sure he'll send me an email when he gets that, and we can talk about that some more. He chose the Pilot livery, which I'm not complaining about because for whatever reason it was the most affordable livery. So he's it, and I think in other emails, I don't think he had any revo slot. He's got like a slot at or Polycar F40, I forget which, but it'll be his first revo slot car, I believe. So that's cool too.
And it's blue at least, Greg. Right?
And it's blue. It doesn't have any yellow on it, or,
but it's close.
But it's it's at least half of a good thing.
Thank God, not another red Ferrari.
Right? Oh, geez. So there's something else to talk about. Now I do have another subject that I can get you guys to talk about if you want, unless there's somebody else that has a show and tell, since we haven't brought up show and tell options. Does anybody have a show and tell? Mike, what you got?
I have a Mosler.
Yeah.
I finally succumbed. And then we started a British Touring Car Challenge. So I've got a couple of those, the Honda and we've got two of the BMWs.
As far as I'm aware, you've got the right ones there.
Yeah. Well, my buddy has bought two and I've bought two. So we've got four for the people that we generally race with. Obviously, this one is not apart already. And my job is to make them balance the performance proper. So that's what I'm doing. Obviously interrupted today.
Oh, poor baby. What kinds
Yeah,
of
you caught me by surprise with the change of date. I missed it, and I was over in Seattle and rushed back to get here on Wednesday, and I went, oh.
You're not the only one.
Don't feel bad. You were not the only one. As Wayne was about to say, you weren't the only one who ignored the alert at the top of the message about the chat.
Yeah.
I won't.
Some of us saw that.
John, Kit.
Some of us saw the alert and then forgot about it today.
Well, I didn't see it. Until I got home, after the rush. I went over to Seattle for a Volvo Club meeting. I used to have a Volvo 1800 ES, and I still keep in touch with the guys, but it's usually from 10 to 12 in Seattle. So I drove over there and then back, and then it's like, okay, so no harm done. I worked on my cars.
My partner said to me, she said, you didn't join in the slot car chat like last night. I said, no, I didn't. She said, it's why? Is that two you've missed? I said, no, it's on Friday.
He's like, what are you in bed for? Get out of bed. This is not.
Yeah.
Now it's on a Friday night. No, this is just a test to see if we can get some more of our Aussie friends and Kiwi friends to come and join us. And hopefully, I mean, at least we've got a couple. A couple said they couldn't come. Gaza, is that the Paul you were thinking of? That's not the Paul I was thinking of. So Paul managed to join us.
Yeah.
I think Gaza should tell us about that track layout he's got behind him. I think that looks like a 3-lane routed HO. Is that correct or not?
No. That's a three-lane 30-second scale.
Oh, it's 30 seconds, is it?
Yeah. It's a 14-meter track.
Well,
14 meters.
Let's circle back on that track in a few minutes because I want to embarrass Paul for a little while. Paul, it's your turn. It's your turn to give us your slot-related history of Paul. Can you hear us?
Okay, morning, guys.
Okay, good. Go for it.
Right, so it's probably about 9:30 here in Australia. So I'm almost awake, had me coffee. All's good with the world. All right. So on all the forums, I'm up there as sports racer. One of the things I wanted to bring to this discussion was talk about proxies, right? Because I run the touring car proxy. Used to be called the Slot Car Illustrated, but that forum site is not the best in the world anymore. So what's amazed me this year with the proxies is I only opened it up for about a week and a half and already had 24 people entering, and had then to say, look, enough's enough, right? Racing 24 cars in one night at 3-minute heats is going to take most of the night. So it's a good limit to work with. And setting up the cars, I mean, it's interesting in that a lot of people enter proxies to develop their skills, but then don't listen to the advice that I give them.
That's people, isn't it?
So I've got a feeling it's an old man thing, right? It's definitely something, oh, I can do better than everybody else. I don't need to listen. And it's fun because you'll get cars that are at all levels, and you'll get some that are absolute dogs to drive. And I'll contact the owners and say, look, do you mind if I just tinker with this a little bit and get the cars a little bit up to specs? And everybody's happy with that. And then when they get the cars back, everybody's complaining about how bad the tyre wear is. And I said, well, I told you to run yellow dogs or MJKs. And these are the best tyres that we run on our tracks. And here in Canberra, well, technically I'm 100 k's living out of Canberra, but we have, I think last count, 14 home tracks that are routed. Right, so we are really spoiled for racing, and running a proxy on something like that is so easy because I can almost run a race around the proxy every single week. And what I do is I video the cars, right, so people are interested. I don't know if it's the best reported proxy in the world, but a lot of people say they're entering just because of the feedback that I give and the filming and showing all the cars running and whatever. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. I'm getting a lot of feedback. This year's the cars, and I run it different in that instead of saying the cars are going to get to me by a certain date, I say the cars are going to be posted by a certain date. That way people from all around the world know what day it has to be sent out. And yes, it may take 2-3 weeks to get the cars. It doesn't matter. I've got all year to run them, and I can run them pretty quick. If I really wanted to and pull my finger out, I could run a couple of rounds of the proxy each week. And I've got guys here that it's hard because you're not sending somebody around the world to compete against other people to compare their skills. The only thing I can compare against is there used to be a hill climb at one of these shops in Canada, and they had a lot of people coming around the world to race at that shop. And one of our guys was there, and he was only there for about 5 minutes, and he set 10th fastest time ever on the hill climb. And he said he could have done a little bit better. And he was the standard that I'm at, and quite a few of our guys are at. So, and because we've got so many tracks and we race so often, the guys that we race with are seriously good racers. Like you can race, 8 heats in a night for that class, and you'll only have about 4 or 5 people coming off. All right, that's enough for me. I'll let somebody else talk.
Is that Loft's hill climb we were saying?
Yep.
Probably Loft's hill climb. There he is.
It would have been.
Can you share some links to your coverage so that we can have a look at it?
Oh, look at any forum. It's it's basically the worldwide slotted Group C proxy. It's all over the place.
No, I thought it was touring cars.
He said touring cars. I've not found that one.
The touring car.
Okay, sorry, I was thinking Group C one. My bad.
Yeah, so the touring car's on the Slot forum. There's a reference on the Slot Car Illustrated forum. and there's a slot. I think there's a slot review forum that only just joined the other day, but there's very little. But if you go to the Oz Slot forum and go down to the road racing posts, there's a lot of coverage there.
That'll be why
the
I've never
rules
found it.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah, and the rules are pretty simple, right? It just has to have a touring car body. You can put whatever chassis, brass, carbon fiber, and because it's open, everybody gets to tinker and work with what they want. I found the fastest cars, and I won last year, was I literally get my fastest car that I've got, take the body off that, and find a body that fits and run that. So last year's a winner was a Pro Slot Toyota GD1, which has always been an amazing car, with a Scalextric Calibra body on top.
Wouldn't have thought it would fit.
Perfect fit, right? And you just have to make your own
the Toyota's a
body
pretty big
mounting
car.
posts. You want big, you want low, you want wide.
Yeah,
that car will always outhandle something smaller.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there are three guys in the UK who are going to enter that proxy this year, and it's a first, I think, for all three of us, going to be the first international proxy we've entered.
Yeah, and we'll kick your ass.
Racing talk.
But it does go back to something we talked about last week, and we talked about what things do you do for tuning, or what things don't you do anymore that you used to do to tune cars. And one that came top of the list amongst all the people on the chat was, we don't put slabs of lead in our car anymore. Our cars are really lightweight. And yet when I reviewed the videos for the top 5 cars for that proxy, they were heavier than anything I own by a long, long way. So, you know, I have to go back to learning mode, and learning mode says you don't try and outthink people, you try and do what they do and just stay within reach of what's going on. So that's sort of the plan, and we'll see how the three of us do. It'll be an interesting proxy.
Well, I mean, even Chris said if he's making a car for a proxy, it's going to be different than what he makes when he's driving the car. And
well, that's the main thing with the proxy, is that you're actually building it for someone else to drive.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how it performs on your track. You might, have a wonderful car and it's fantastic. You've got to build it probably a little less, not as quick, probably more stable and more consistent. And that's the key to a proxy, especially when we were running rallies and all that. It didn't matter how fast the car was, as long as it stayed on the track, circulated, the average times would then come down. So and that's the big key with it.
Build the car for the worst driver in the series, and you'll be fine.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
What were you holding up earlier, Mark?
Oh yeah, that's
another finger.
Gary will recognise this. This is hang on. This is a Australian Falcon Scalextric, and I built this after Dave Carter in our club had run the Australian touring car proxy, and I looked at the rules for that, and I drove the cars in 2 rounds, and some of them were pretty awful, and some of them are medium. But we decided to have that as a class of car and club, so I built one to his rules and said, you might need to change these rules, because these things are just going to be crazy rocket ships if we build them. That's a slotted LMP chassis. It's built to the rules of the proxy, perfectly legal, and my estimate is that it was 4/10 a lap faster than anything in the proxy. It was just stupid. I've actually slowed it down to run it in club, and it's still almost unbeatable. But it was built to the rules of the proxy. So sometimes people just overthink stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. I was wondering when you started talking about the when I realized that it was the touring cars, I'm like, okay, so it's a bunch of Opals. Like all Opal.
I think it's 10 o'clock.
Time for break.
1 a.m.
All right, well, I've got a topic that I can dig up. Does anybody else have any show and tell or anything you want to add to previous conversations? Circle back
I got
on?
some. I got a little bit.
Go ahead, Dennis. Oh, you're muted.
Speak, Dennis.
I was muted. Sorry. Hang on a moment.
Oh, now you muted yourself again.
No, yeah, I was just pressing the space bar.
Okay.
This is something that I was assembling for one of our customers. I don't know how many of you guys know the Black Arrow brand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so one of our customers bought this one, which I think is quite possibly the last Monster 46 brand new Black Arrow Ferrari left in the world, because it's a limited edition, and as they come in bits and pieces in the box. Electric Dreams has now got a distributorship on this, and so we have all the spare parts available for them as well now. So if ever you need super high quality gears, wheels, things like that, all of the Black Arrow parts are in stock at Electric Dreams. I just thought I'd give you that shameless plug.
Well, what kind of things did you have to? You said you were building that for a customer. What kinds of?
Yeah, but when you buy the car, none of the mechanicals are assembled. You have to put in the motor, put in the gears, put in all do all the wiring, get the setup done. So all of that has to be done ahead of time.
Did you change anything from stock for that?
I haven't. No, he just wanted it assembled. I don't know how he's going to drive it or where he's going to drive it. So it's a little bit difficult. The one that I have, I've done a lot of work on it because it has different wheels and tires at the rear. But these things with a 28,000 RPM long can motor in them are pretty, they're pretty vicious on a short track, especially with no magnets.
Yeah,
anyway, just thought you'd like to see that.
Yeah.
By super high quality, Dennis, did you mean by that they're better than the most of the rest, or the best?
They're better than most of the rest. I wouldn't say that they're difficult to say, because just the way that they make the gears, the way that they make their pinions are really nice. The guides are pretty good. The rear wheels, if you're someone who likes really lightweight wheels, they're very, very nice wheels at the rear. The fronts are plastic, so that doesn't really count for much. The moldings of the chassis and the motor pod itself are really nice. The motor pod is very, very strong and stiff. It has a nice three-point suspension in it already.
Yeah, there's a lot about those cars that is very, very right, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
I've driven one. I don't own one, but I've driven one.
It's the kind of thing that you when you're working on it and you're putting it together, and even afterwards when you're driving it, you think to yourself, whoever designed this knew what he was doing with a slot car.
Yeah, right. I'd agree with that.
I succumb to the lure of Black Arrow as well. The only sad thing about this is I've not got to drive these cars. I've had these for quite a while now. They haven't seen it. It's sad, but everything about these cars is really good. I mean, I'm really so impressed, especially the way the whole motor mount floats. It really does float in a way that you never see on another car. But there is one thing that detracts from them as a hardcore racing car. I built this one as well. Is that the rear wings on these cars? I don't think they will last an evening. They may not even last one race. They are ultra fragile. I don't know what you think, Dennis. Have you put the standard wing on it, or has it got?
I've got standard wings on mine, but none of them are actually glued in. So if you crash, which you shouldn't be doing anyway, but if you crash, the wing falls off, and that's it. You put it back in again. I tend not to glue them on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might think about doing that. We had a guy who was doing that at one of the clubs for a while, and he always seemed to lose his wing on the main straight, which flipped into another lane, which launched another car.
Oh,
which
dear.
is you can make a few, you can lose a
Okay.
few friends that way.
You could probably
Fun.
there's
Is
a
that the stock wing angle on the back of your black bull?
No.
What's this one?
Alan, you know, look, that one looks like it's got quite a severe angle to its rear wing.
Yeah.
Is that stock? Is that?
I always do stack the rear wing up, and I've done that on my motors for the longest time. And I think I mentioned this before. This is where Gary, Skip, and I completely diverge when it comes to opinion about how to set up slot cars, because he doesn't believe aerodynamics plays any part whatsoever, and I disagree. And
Chris
that's
Walker has a strong feeling on that too. Yeah.
How we do it. You know, I do my thing, that other people do their thing, but I always flip the wing up a bit higher if I can.
I thought it looked suspicious.
there's a trick that's fairly common in a variety of hobbies when you have two pieces that you want to stay together but not necessarily be bonded, and they slip apart too easily, is to bulk up the pin or the slot with some nail polish or some super glue or something. That way, when you press it into the slot, it's got a snugger fit, and so it's not going to come off in the straight, but it will come off in a crash and not break. So that's something that might be worth trying.
There's one thing a guy showed me at a enduro several years ago, was he had some black sticky stuff. It was a bit like blue tack, but it obviously wasn't blue tack, and he wouldn't tell me what it was, but he gave me about a teaspoonful, which I'm still working my way through because you don't use a lot at once. I think it's the gasket goo for automobile windscreens. That that really black, heavy, sticky stuff, you bed the windscreen into it. It never actually goes hard, so if the windscreen breaks, they can get it out again. But it's a lot more viscous than blue tack, and so for a few cars, GT3 cars, where I can't get a flexible wing, I've used that to hold the wing in place, and it tends not to fall out in a race. But if you have a decent whack against a wall or get tipped over, you're more likely that the wing will then release than break.
If you guys can get a hold of some LePage's 100 glue, it's a very thin, soft rubber glue that is not, it's like a quarter of the strength of shoe glue or something like that. So it'll hold the wing in, it'll bend all over the place, but the wings won't be popping out going down the main straight, no matter what angle.
Very good.
What was it called again? LePage's?
Sorry?
What was it called again?
LePage's 100, right?
LePage's 100. All right, gentlemen, you are on a quest to get LePage's 100 and report back.
Just noticed that the Ozslot links are in the chat, and thank you very much for whoever posted those. Gary, I think it was. Thanks very much. I've opened those links. I'll still have a look in due course.
Thank you for that, Gary. Does anybody else have anything they want to show and tell or talk about before I dig up my topic to talk about?
I got my hill climb finished.
Oh yeah, you want to show it off a little?
I'll try.
All right.
I don't know if this is that.
Yep, looks good.
That's impressive.
There it is.
In just weeks he did this.
Hang on. Hard to.
It'd take me
Anyway.
10 years to do that.
I know, right?
It's about 71 feet of running.
Yikes.
Honestly, the most impressive thing to me about Luff and his builds is that he electrifies them and still manages to continue working on the landscaping. I don't know how that's possible.
Well, you gotta get it running before you can.
Yeah, but
Can we, can we see it run?
All right.
Oh, he's posted a few videos. We're not going to try to make Luff run while he holds the camera up like that. But if you go
I thought that might be fun.
if you find him old slot, or actually your YouTube is Luff Linkered, isn't it, Luff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you search,
Yeah,
Luff,
I've got a video up on YouTube where I'm running this. It's about, I'm down in the 15-second range.
nice.
And does it still have that loop and the reversing system at the top?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you start, down here and you end up down here. So the total run is 71 feet.
It's amazing.
Anyway,
Great looking track as always.
Mhm.
fills up my den.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Liv. So yeah,
that's- Sorry,
no, it's okay.
that's gorgeous, and that's the kind of stuff I'm into.
Yeah,
Oh, it's fun.
please tell me you've been to oldslot.racer.com.
No,
Oh my God, you're gonna lose a month.
Nice knowing you.
Go to oldslot.racer.com.
What do I have to search for on YouTube to find Loft's channel?
Luff, L-U-F, Linkert, Linkert. I believe there's a space in his name, so if you search for users, Luff Linkert. I can put a link, or somebody can put a link up, but it's not too hard. Or you can search Old Slot Racer. I guarantee
Yeah,
some of his.
I've got him.
about
I've got him. I had 2 F's in his name, that was all.
I got about 140 videos on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I found it.
Lots of his tracks up there, but oldslot.racer.com was where he was selling his products to route slot car tracks. I'm doing that now. But all the pictures from all the people who sent in pictures of their tracks that they built with his products are on that site. So you literally got hundreds of links to click on. Each of those go to a page with anywhere from 1 to 100 pictures of that person's track that they built. And it runs the gamut from just plain racetrack to fully landscaped miniature worlds.
Yeah, it takes you hours to go through them, and I
There's
enjoy it every time I do it.
Dave.
There's over 500 pages on that site. That's why I haven't updated it.
That's why
It's a wonderful resource, though.
Absolutely.
I looked through that thing so often before I built my first track, and I learned so much from going through that lot.
Inspirational.
Yep,
Yes,
great inspiration.
Hey,
Lots
Greg.
of inspiration. Yes, sir.
Did you say you're gonna build a routed track?
That's one of the things that I have in my long-term future, but no, I sell the routing products. So I sell the routing strip and the routing guide and the tape machine and base plates and stuff like that.
Does anybody have an opinion on? I know you're probably gonna cringe.
You all have opinions.
of magnetized braid.
It's expensive and hard to find. That's the opinion.
Does it
So
work?
Yeah, it works. It's about the same as your Carrera Digital because the stainless steel rails don't have a lot of pull, and the Magna braid isn't all steel woven. It's partially copper, nickel plated copper, and partially steel. So it's got about the same magnetic pull as Carrera track.
I think there was a gentleman on. This is gonna probably episode or chat number 4, 3. Who
Let me check the index. Hold on.
Yeah, right. Who takes Carrera track and cuts out all the digital aspects and puts it in a routed track?
Oh yeah, people do that all the time. Okay, I won't say all the time. That's relatively common. There's
I
plenty
can
of
remember that. Yeah, there was a guy that was saying, don't be afraid to chop up your track and start trying to do things with it because it's quite easy to do. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. Yeah.
The only advantage you have with the routed system is that, like Greg's track behind him there, where you have a conventional, complete 90-degree circle, if you like, sort of thing. Your radius isn't hampered by a set diameter. You can make the radius as tight or as wide or as loose as you want, and you can squeeze the tracks together and have all sorts of different setups and all that on there. The only problem you have with it, obviously, is once you've routed the track, it's sort of semi-permanent, if you like. It's not like you can change it the next week and just rip it all apart. Change it
unless you're Luff.
Unless you're Luff Linkert.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah. So, but he just sells them off and then just builds another one. Like that'd be good. But in Sydney here, majority of the tracks, I can't even recall anyone that still has a plastic one. All the home tracks are all routed.
And routed is, if you did routed and the digital together, would that be ideal?
Oh yeah. That's
Well,
personally.
Well, one of the guys that I do know is head of Scorpius. So he Rick Field. So he's got his own routed setup there, which is it's still in the process of building. Their last stage was about 65 meters or something he had set up for it, and it's got massive lane changes and all this type of setup. And because he's also got the programming from Race Coordinator, which runs with the Scorpius setup there, so that you can have the lane brain, you can have pits, you can do all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's mind blowing some of the stuff that he's got with it. But
my wife's gonna kill me.
Don't let Rick hear you say that Scorpius Wireless Race Manager is Race Coordinator. He does not like that connection.
No. He's in cahoots with Dave from the Race Coordinator. They both.
Oh no, I know that. But when
when
people point that out, he's not.
You don't have to tell me that. I can talk about him now because Mark's gone, so it's all right.
I don't think Mark would care either.
Anyway, the only thing with the routed track is that we don't use Magna braid on it. We just normal conventional braid with it. The technology with tires, I discussed this last time when we were on. The technology with tires these days and the compound that you use on the track itself negates all the need for any magnets on it. You can get extreme performance just with the normal with different compounds and that on the track surface, a polyurethane or just a clear.
A wood track, yeah.
A wood track, yeah.
Or you could, Neil, do you still play primarily with magnets in your cars, or do you play with non-magnet cars?
No, I have the I can go analog or digital.
I meant magless or non-magnet.
I do both, actually. You know, if I purchase a car that has no magnets, then I tune it and drive it that way.
Okay, so and you have Carrera track, right?
I do.
So if you want as near to a routed track experience as one can get with plastic track, paint the track. Paint it with your cheapest flat, matte, wall, latex paint, bottom shelf, $10 a gallon latex paint.
So you're saying flat?
Flat, yep, matte.
Okay.
Hey, Greg, can I show something?
And it's got to be the cheap stuff. Yes, Marcus, you built a routed track, didn't you?
Well, actually, this was an Arden track. Let me.
Oh yeah. I remember your track now. Did you do the River Rock or something, or that was pretty popular for a while?
Yeah. Can you?
Yep.
Can you see? I see that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, that was an Arden, which is it used to be dirt cheap. You could buy a 4-lane track for $100. This was like 20 years ago. It's like Carrera. It's not quite as wide. But yeah, this was, I got it down. Obviously the first thing you'd have to do is get a plan that you like, that you don't plan on changing. But yeah, all the scenes were all filled with like vinyl spackle. It's kind of flexible. And just paint it all with flat paint and then copper tape the rails. And that's about as close as you're going to get to a routed track. And you still have, if you're running magnets, like I still do for most of my cars, you still get all the benefit, that too. But it takes some time. But yeah, it's, I really liked it. And once I did it, it was like night and day between, a typical plastic track and this was in a basement, so the copper worked fine. I didn't have any, it's pretty steady climate control down there, so I don't have a lot of the issues that, some people might have. But it's, again, I don't know if I do it on Carrera because, you spend a lot of money on a nice Carrera track. If you want to ever take it apart, I suppose you could, maybe salvage it. It would just be a real hassle, probably getting the, joint stuff off. But yeah,
well, you don't have to fill the joints. That's
you don't have to. No,
nothing wrong with that. But if you,
I would.
I mean, it's Carrera track being styrene, and a nice hard plastic, doesn't have the problems that Scalextric Sport and Classic and Ninco and whatnot have with their softer plastics getting all bumpy and having, bad joins and stuff like that. You could just, tape off the rails and then just roller some super cheap latex. And the reason I keep saying super cheap is because it tends to have more of the rubber kind of petroleum distillate
Higher
compound.
latex content.
Latex content, higher latex content. Thank you, Chris. That's the word I was looking for. The cheaper stuff works better. It sticks to the track better, and it provides a really good level of grip. So don't buy expensive paint thinking it's going to work better. Get the cheap stuff because it works better. And then, you've got a hard surface. You've got a high grip surface. You could totally go magless, and you would think that the cars still had magnets in them. And then, get a nice flowing layout with, compound radius turns where you're going, 4-3-2 and 2-3-4 and stuff like that, rather than consistent radius turns looking like a child's toy on the floor kind of slot car track. And you've got a near routed track experience right there.
Yeah, I have a lot of turns on mine. Like I explained earlier on my intro, that I designed my track to fill my basement spot so I could do the landscaping. So it's only like 3.5 feet wide, but it's all over the place. You know what I'm saying? So I have plenty of turns. I only have one long straightaway.
Have you seen DW555 on the forums or on YouTube?
I have seen, yes, I've seen him on the forums, yes.
So you've probably seen his YouTube videos where he shows off his track.
I don't think I have.
Well, then look for him, because his track sounds similar to what you are going for and what you are doing. It is also a Carrera digital track. He's painted the track. It's fully landscaped. It has basically it has access points, so it's not the total footprint of the track is probably like 20 by 30, but it's got fingers and you can walk into the track area because that's the track is shaped like a giant M kind of thing where it's track on the table and then you walk into the table and stuff. But it's fully landscaped, fully painted, and he not more than a couple of weeks ago he did basically a walkthrough where he just shows you the whole track and describes it in detail and everything. And yeah, look for that DW555 on most of the forums. And I think that's probably a good example for what can be done with the stuff that you have.
Yeah, I measured mine. My track is about 115 feet.
That's pretty good length.
2 lane.
That's a lot.
Yep. So it's
Then there's John Kitt at Slot Car Garage. He's got a latex painted Carrera.
Is his Carrera? I thought his was like Arton or something older too.
I think it's Carrera.
It's Carrera.
Okay.
Who was that?
John
Kitt.
Yeah.
Slot Car Garage on YouTube. There you go, John. You can have the plug for free.
Any links that put in the chat, I will put into the video description. So anybody who wants to share a link to something that we talk about, by all means, put it in there. I will forget. So if you put the link in there, I'll copy it to the description.
Marks. I joined the slotforum.com. So I'm in.
What's your username there?
18 NASCAR.
818 NASCAR?
Yes.
All righty. 18 NASCAR deal.
That's what I use
has been
everywhere.
posting a lot of those pictures of Brad's old track that were lost. And it's really nice. It's nice to see him again because there's a lot of great stuff there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but because you guys are more important right now.
Well, we've got about half an hour left. I think the topic that I've been holding on to will probably fill most of that time. So somebody sent me a message, and I thought it was a good idea. A little bit more information on something that we've talked about before, but here's what they wrote. I would like to see a discussion on car chassis tuning using weight, specifically no magnet, tuning cars with weight. How much makes a difference? What to do if the car is tipping? When to add weight behind the axle, when to add weight in front of the rear axle, when to add weight above the motor, etc. So So when you say the car will tell you what it needs as far as weight tuning, what are you looking for in the action of the car, and how do you rectify that with weight tuning? So I'm not going to call on Chris, but I'm sure he's got lots of information in that regard. Does anybody else want to start?
A massive subject, isn't it? It's quite a large subject. It's got a lot of facets potentially.
I'll go ahead and start the ball rolling because I do very little weight tuning. Here's my weight tuning. I run the car. If it feels like it's jumping out of the slot when it shouldn't be, which I'd like to think it shouldn't be when I'm driving it around, but if it feels like it feels like an unexpected understeer, right? It just kind of goes straight rather than turns or whips out or whatever. Then I'm like, okay, well, I need something up, there's something happening up front. So I make sure the braids are nice and flat and that's not the problem. And I, do the poke down on the front of the car kind of thing to make sure it's not, jumping out of the slot for other reasons. And if I can't find anything obvious, then I'll stick a lump of lead up front somewhere, usually as far forward as I can get it. And then that usually reduces that tendency for me. That's pretty much the extent of my weight tuning.
Yeah, sometimes you can get a piece just in front of the front axle, just behind the guide, right in the center.
Yeah.
That will help a lot with that kind of circumstance.
I like to use.
For me, tuning with weight is kind of the very last resort. I do everything I can not to add weight. The one I've not been able to do, it's very difficult to do, is start line deslot. If you've got so much power that you're punching the car forward and it's lifting the front of the car up, even suspension tuning is difficult, or changing tires, it's difficult to limit that. So exactly as Wayne said, weight behind the guide, that's the solve. The other one is, if you've got a car that's an absolute nightmare of a design, and the Slotted Alpha touring car is one of these, you cannot do anything unless you replace the interior with a lightweight interior. You cannot get the center of gravity of that car down without putting slabs of lead or plasticine or something, generally along the length of the chassis, along the chassis rails. But apart from that, I don't really do any of that, and I never put weight on the pod. There's enough weight with the motor for me. But everybody, the one thing about this subject is everybody has an opinion, and everybody's opinion is different.
And everybody.
All right, this is going to be totally different. Right?
Go ahead, Paul.
Guys, yeah. All right. So this is the chassis of the last year's touring car Proxy winner. All right. Now you can see the lead in that. There's a little bit on the side of the motor, a little bit up front. This thing is really sweet to drive, and this is the sort of thing that I build for the Proxy. The replacement chassis for the exact same car is this one, and it has a massive amount of lead. Look how thick that is just in front of the back wheel, right? And it's got lead on the front, down the center, on the pod. This is easily the best handling car I have ever driven. Now, I have 200 working slot cars, and I've been tinkering with lead and everything for 20 years. This is a car I actually bought off somebody else, and I was surprised at how much lead, but I bought the car because it never loses a race. Right, so this is one of the cars that I'll be building for the touring car Proxy. The body for it is a scaly Calibra, and I'm not sure if you can pick on the front the distortion in there. You can see it there because I ground off so much weight inside, the heat actually melted the front. Right, Lexan interior. Even the window is a piece of plastic that I put in to reduce the weight. So that's an ultra lightweight body. So ultra lightweight body together with a very heavy car. And this thing probably weighs about 100 grams. This, if it's the one that I'm going to run, I'm expecting it again to win the Proxy. My biggest competitor is my brother, who also knows how to build a decent car. Here's another one I'm working with. It's got the Nissan 390 chassis, and I just made the engine mounts out of little plastic straws, glued them to the body, right? And it works very well. This is very quick. Something else that I'm playing with, right? Now, we all know how good Thunder Slot are. I found a Ninko Audi TT body as the exact same dimensions. So I'm making one of them for the touring car Proxy. And the Ninko body weighs less than this body, which is really surprising. So this is the standard. If you are entering this Proxy and you have a Thunder Slot, or you know somebody's got one, borrow it, try their car out, try that. Your Proxy car needs to be as good as a Thunder Slot. And that's going to be a challenge. And for something you to play with, right? But I love doing stuff like that.
Nice.
Well, that 100-gram car that you just showed us with the slotted MX-16 motor, I believe.
It's running, the slotted orange end bell.
Is that 23K or
23K? Yeah.
Do you have very, very long straights in use?
No.
I'm gonna guess not, because I think a car of that weight with that motor might be a little bit heavy for the power unit.
On the tracks that we've got, most of the tracks are they're between about 3 and 5 meters long. So the longest straight that we've got
I
is
think
5 meters.
one of the considerations with weight tuning is the nature of your track, and there is no one right answer. And I do think that a longer track with larger radius corners will require a different kind of weight distribution or tuning for than a car that runs in a small home track, like you say 3 meters longest straight or something. You can get away with more weight on a track, I think, that is technical and short than you can on a track that's longer and more sweeping.
You'll be surprised how little difference a long straight makes on a very good handling car. Once that car goes through the corners, it just picks up so much speed, and you carry that speed onto the straights.
I agree with
at the end
that.
of the straight, you can keep the speed through the corner at the end of the straight. So what we find is, yes, you may lose half a meter on a long straight, but you more than make up for it on the corners.
Yeah. Of course.
Luff, you were going to say something? Luff, you were going to say something earlier?
I think the most important thing is if you treat the chassis as a triangle with the back wheels and the guide flag being the triangle, you keep all the weight inside that triangle.
So when you're doing, let's say you have a car that's tipping easily, what's the first thing you do?
I just start at, I like using Play-Doh or plasticine because it's easy to add a little bit and it sticks to wherever you want to put it. And then you just keep adding it until you get the thing working the way you like. And then you can subtract this, to get it down lighter, but you keep that same balance.
Plus it's cheap.
Does anyone think that there's a mathematical formula for weight tuning?
Nah.
Well,
I hope not.
Anyone you want.
Huh?
Anyone you want.
Anyone you want.
Yeah. 2 + 2 is 4.
I think it's useful to know the weight of the body shell all up.
Yeah.
Interior, windows, the whole bit. And if you know the weight of the body shell, you can start to think about comparing that to the weight of the whole car whilst it's got its chassis and all its running gear attached. And when you consider the whole car weight, which we're going to say is in the 80-gram area, and the body shell is 20 to 30, let's say 20 to 25 grams of that 80, then you've almost certainly got what I would refer to as a top heavy car. And your description, well, your commenter said, what do you do if the car tips over in a corner? Well, it depends on why it's tipping over. One of the easy ways to resolve that is to make the front tires have no grip, because a lot of the ways that a car tips over is over its outside front wheel, outside on the corner. And if that car's got grip, it's easier for it to roll over. If it's got none, it's going to slide easier. So that would be tuning that car with that problem without adding any weight. If once the front tires have been dulled to no grip whatsoever and the problem still persists, then the obvious answer to the next step is to attempt to lower the CFG. Now, it's very difficult to ascertain exactly where the CFG is on a slot car, but if your body shell's 25% of the weight of the car and it's tipping over, then it's highly likely that your CFG is above the axle line. And I think there's definite benefits, and a lot of slot car designs agree with this statement, that the very, very low CFG has a very, very good chance of not tipping over. And one of the easy ways to lower the CFG without doing any work to a body shell, of course, that would be the first thing to do. Lighten the body shell, lighten the windows, lighten the body shell, do whatever you can that's legal. And that will lower the CFG because you've reduced the weight of the whole body. But without doing that, then it's obviously resorting to adding lead to the chassis. And there's another rule of thumb that a lot of people like to use in this respect, and that is to weigh the front of the car or the guide of the car and the rear axle with the body shell on, and compare the different weights and work out what the percentage of weight is on the front and the back, and aim for a starting place of about 60% of the weight of the car on the back axle, and see whether you've still got that problem and work with what you've got from there. But as regards running heavy cars, personally, most of mine are not as heavy as 100 grams. I don't know about you, Alan.
Well, I was just looking at one of my club Moslers that I run, and both of my club racing NSR Moslers are long can angle winders, and they weigh 72 grams. So the idea that a car would be up about 100 grams with a small can motor is just
abhorrent too.
Not do it at all. So, it's just, like I said, you're not going to get any agreement or alignment on this. I feel sort of sorry for any newbies watching this on a rerun, because you're just going to see a bunch of us guys disagreeing. Because
the answer there then is to get some blue tack, plasticine, or something that's easy to add and remove, and go play, go experiment, learn for yourself.
But there are a couple of basics to realize, right?
I hope I picked a few of those out. Yeah.
Okay. But one of the basics is, if you, and Greg was talking about this, what's the car telling you? And one of the things you've got to remember is that it's very often counterintuitive because of the fact that a slot car has a guide that is stuck into a slot at the front, right? And you need to watch the car. If the car's coming out in the turn, if it's coming out early in the turn and tipping, meaning that it has too much traction, the place to put the weight is at the back of the car. And the reason for that is that you want to increase the pendulum effect of the rear of the car so that you make the rear of the car slide. You have to overcome the traction of the tires. And everybody thinks you put on weight to gain traction. Generally, no. You put on weight to remove traction. Right? The only time you're trying to use weight to do anything else is, like Alan was saying, to put it right up front to stop the nose popping out on a start if you have a lot of traction. But that's, to me, one of the great things. The other thing, too, is weight on a chassis depends on the type of tire you're using. If you're running rubber or urethane or silicone, it's three completely different environments. You can't talk about the same kind of weighting with rubber tires as you do with silicones or or with urethanes. And then on top of it, if you're running urethanes and you're running on a flat latex surface, it's one thing. If you're running urethanes and you're running on a textured, like a chalkboard paint or a sand, a Ferrador, or what, like some of the Australian tracks used to be. I don't know if they're still like that. It's a whole different story.
You also have to, track makes a huge difference. If you're running on a wood track or versus a plastic track, weight balance, tires, all that makes a huge, big difference. So, and using weight to hide things is a really bad idea. So as Alan said, weight is the last resort. So think if you've got a 70-gram car trundling down the track and you put 2 grams of weight on your 70-gram car and it has out of round tires, 2 grams is going to do nothing, absolutely nothing. So you need to make sure everything else in the car is done first. Build it to the best of your ability, as true and smooth and round and all the rest of the stuff. Put it on the track and then add weight. But to say for the guys who run with urethane tires on plastic track, for them to say, you shouldn't have heavy cars is a bit myopic. If you run with rubber tired cars on a wood track, there's a totally different setup required.
Yep, as always, it depends.
It does.
There isn't the full information in the question, is there? Because he doesn't answer whether or not he's running on plastic and whether he's using plastic chassis cars or
I think
we are presuming that he is.
I think what the person who posed the question is wanting is for anybody who does weight tuning to go ahead and describe what they do and go ahead and be specific about what kind of track and car you're running and why you're doing that kind of weight tuning for that. So Alan, obviously he's talking about high grip, high power motors. Presumably we're talking about a hard body slot car with a potted chassis on a routed track that's been painted with some kind of latex emulsion kind of thing.
And typically angle winders, because angle winders do seem to have the torque and the right gearing and the way that the motor is orientated to the rear axle and the body, they seem to be able to lift the front out much more easily than any other. So for angle winders, that's definitely the thing I would do. But again, it's the last thing I would do. If the pod is set up correctly and you have the right spring on the front pod, say it's an NSR pod, the front spring should allow the front of the pod to blip up and absorb some of that punch from the motor off the line. And that helps keep the front down because the front spring in the pod is absorbing some of that, especially if you have a little silicone grease in there or a little damping gel or something. But you can try all of those things, and if you just can't get the front to stay down, you can tune your SCP controller and put some anti-grip, anti-slip on there. But still, even that, sometimes you have to use some weight. So that's one specific one I would say, yes. But even that, it's not a given. I would never build a car with weight. I would only grudgingly add weight to try and get rid of some bad behaviors.
Well, I think that's what we're talking about is if you're getting a bad behavior, disregarding everything, all of your normal tuning stuff, we're already assuming that you've taken care of what you normally would do, and the only thing left is to add or remove weight. Right. What behavior are you looking for that is then going to lead you to determine that I need to add weight here or there, or I definitely need to remove weight here or there? Wayne made a great point about the center of gravity being too high. You've got a heavy body because it's got a injection molded interior with injection molded glass and everything. And if you're a newbie like me relative to most of the stuff that you guys do, maybe I'll take that slotted alpha DTM and just to see if the problem is because of the weight of the interior and the glass and everything. Just temporarily pop out the interior and see what kind of change I get from the handling. And that will tell me what, that I should use a Lexan interior, or that I should add weight to the chassis, or both, or neither, or what. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I think we're looking for. Use yourself as an example is fine.
And another thing I do is take off the body shell and run the chassis without it.
Oh, that always works.
That's always the best, isn't it?
That's always the best.
Proof positive that, you know, heavy bodies don't work well. But, you know, there's a bunch of other things that, you know, in the whole weight tuning and chassis dynamics, altering the front track and the rear track, even a little bit, can play big dividends. Widening a track, widening the rear track of a slot car lowers the center of gravity. Narrowing the track increases the center of gravity.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because nothing's actually moved vertically to change the height of the CG. But I understand what you're saying, Chris. I'm saying what I'm saying for the sake of the people who need to think about the height of the CG being a dot in space, and let's say it's, I don't know, on the bottom of the interior as standard. Okay. And so the triangle is from the contact patches of the outside edges of the rear tires to the CG. So you can visualize a triangle, and as you make the track wider, the triangle doesn't change its height, but it gets wider at the base, and so it becomes a flatter triangle. And so because the outriggers are further out, the resistance to roll is increased.
Right. Absolutely. Physics and geometry, slot cars were the only reason I got through school, physics and geometry. You know, the professor's talking about, you know, the width of the base of a triangle affects how it tips. And I'm going, well, hang on, I think I can use this. So I start paying attention to my physics teacher and my geometry teacher. But yes, very definitely a wider base triangle, a wider track reduces the center of gravity, and a narrower track increases the center of gravity. So not only for the resistance to roll, a narrower track car, by the same premise, can generate more grip because it tips a little more and loads the outside of the tire a little more.
That's correct. That's also correct, which is counterintuitive sometimes, but.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you know, there's
if what you need is more weight on a tire to make it grip better, then that higher CG or narrower track will work for you. It depends on which side of optimal you are as to which direction you need to go. If you need to put more weight on a tire, then that will work.
Yeah. So I mean, back to, you know, everyone's comment, and you know, Alan certainly mentioned it. Don't put any weight or do any weird stuff to your car until you build it as perfectly great as you can possibly build it, and then put it on the track and find out what it's going to do. Then it'll tell you, do I need to change gear ratio? Do I need to add weight? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that?
And that's another one for Alan, isn't it? He's got gear ratios on powerful motors that cause wheelies. And perhaps he could tame that by reducing the number of teeth on his angle gear, or increasing the number of teeth on his pinion.
You're building your cars wrong, Alan.
No, we're not saying that.
I know.
I know he knows this, but you know, this is for the viewer, you know.
No, I factor that in, you know, when I'm doing that kind of thing, because when you add weight, you kind of can dog a car down, but you can do that by overgearing it. But you know, if you overgear it, and I do generally raise the lengthen the gearing, because the tracks I race at, they've got quite long straights. I generally do it. It makes the cars easier to drive without adding weight in. So
That's
yes,
correct.
I generally have quite long ratios. So the short ratios down at 3:1 I wouldn't use, but even with the longer ratios, you can lift the front of the car out if your tires are well prepped and it's a warm day and the track's been cleaned or something like that.
That thing you hold in your hand with the trigger on it, that's got a lot to do with popping out when the green light comes on as well.
That's the other tuning method right there.
You know, it's interesting. We a few years ago we did quite a bit of investigating on saying, okay, a lot of guys were just popping out when the green came on because everybody's standing there with their fingers fully depressed. So how much weight do you have to add to stop that? And what does that do to the overall lap times of your car versus when the green light comes on, squeeze the trigger, be 2 or 3 feet behind by the time you get to the first corner. But does the lack of the weight you had to add to compensate for that play out and work to your favor over the course of a heat?
So, Chris, those people are using a dead track start then.
Because
Sorry?
the tracks in the UK, what you're describing is something called a cold start. So
Dead
the
start,
power
yeah,
of
that's
the
right.
track is not there until the green light comes on. Most of the tracks I've raced in the UK and Europe, the power is always on. And if you jump the start, the system will detect that, and then it'll stop your car, and you're held for 5 seconds. So no one's standing there on the start line with the grip down, because you just can't do that. So that's a different thing. Yeah, I can imagine. And also, there's an interest. Actually, Greg, I think it was Greg that pointed this out. If you're racing with a slotted controller, if you do that and you hold the throttle down, all of those fancy dials that slow down the attack angle don't work, because for the first 2 seconds of an SCP powering up, those don't work. So that could be a reason too.
Yeah, that's one thing that SCP users should be aware of is your traction control knob, or whatever it's called, has no effect when it's a dead start track. So if you're and obviously, at least in my area, the tracks are more commonly dead until the race begins, and so it's more common for guys to just be holding the trigger until the race begins, because then their car, they all just shoot off at the exact same time. With the SCP controller, turning that knob up or down doesn't matter. If you're holding the trigger, it's going to get full power right off the bat. And I learned that the hard way with the wheeling out of the slot from too much traction for exactly. And so I developed a habit of not holding the trigger for 2 reasons. 1, to avoid that, and 2, because I've found it a lot easier to go ahead and chase the guys into the first few turns and not have to worry about being kicked to the side by somebody in the first turn just because we're all in the whole shot together, right? I'll go ahead and just let them go and then follow right behind them. And then I end up passing them later on, or just not getting into a crash because I've stayed out of that group of cars going into the first turn at full speed.
Yeah, I think we've found a continental difference there. I think the UK, we use live starts most of the time.
I didn't know that. What about you guys down under, Paul?
Live start, the track is always powered. We run race software that we start normally a foot or 2 behind the start line. If you go across too early, and it'll count down 3, 2, 1, go. If you go across too early, it doesn't count your first lap, right? But just to hijack the thread a little bit, here's my controller. All right, now this is often referred to as a Frankenstein, right? Good old Palmer turbo. It's got the switch here is to bypass the brake or bypass the power. It's ancient, it's unbelievably good. I use it for every single track we race at, every single car, no electronics whatsoever. As soon as you move it, the power is on, and it's set so that the power is pretty vicious. So when it comes on, the car's moving reasonably quick. And the reason I like that is because through the corner, I've got then this much adjustment through each corner. And I've won a lot of races using this thing, and it is just so dependable, even to the point that JB Weld on the handle, and as the JB Weld slowly starts to drive, I've just gone like that to mold it into shape. So I can run this on an 8-hour enduro, right? Absolutely love it. And I don't like running electronic controllers. My backup is a Professor motor, which I very rarely use in case something happens to this. You can see I've double wired the power because it came off once or twice during the middle of the race. Right now it doesn't happen again. The pots, the only place I could find decent pots was from Russia off eBay. And these things will last through World War III, right? Super strength, love this controller.
I mean, the controller makes a big difference. You know, you definitely have a very high comfort level with that controller.
Yeah, if you can run a controller for 8 hours, you know it.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think those pots came off a T-54 tank.
It was a Russian eBay site.
Well, does anybody want to show off their awesome controller in the last few minutes of the
I was just wondering, do we think we've resolved the issue of how to tune with weight?
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we nailed that one.
Next
Anybody
question.
watch this episode, they know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Aussie weight.
We'll go for tyres next time.
I think the one that we didn't cover is whether you put weight down the middle of the car or down the edges. And I think there's a general agreement that if you put it down the edges, it will benefit you on longer sweeping tracks, and down the center can benefit you on tight twisty tracks.
It depends. I mean, placement of weight is just as important as the amount of weight.
Yeah.
You can put less weight in a better position and have the same effect as more weight in a crummy position. So you can use, again, going back to physics and geometry, you can use lever principles and all the rest of the stuff, fulcrum principles, to use less to do more.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that would lead into voltage, wouldn't it, as well?
To which?
Voltage.
Oh.
Variable voltage on the track, different RPM motors and everything else. So yeah. So,
yeah, everything plays into everything. So tuning it's a very specific subject.
I'm glad we covered it. Got it, nailed it. Yep, perfect.
Yeah. We can pretty much stop the chat forever. You guys are all good now forever.
Yeah.
Well,
the world is now correct.
It seems like that has wound things down, and we've only got a couple minutes left. So I'm going to go ahead and stop a minute early here. As always, if you can attend a live chat, please do so. Otherwise, we will see you guys again in a week or two. So I'm going to hit the stop button and say
in a week or two.
Whatever. You never know.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.